So I'm here to give a speech today about the backdrop for the budget that I'll hand down in less than 3 weeks' time. There have been two important developments overnight and this morning which feed into our considerations as we finalise the budget for later this month. Overnight, the IMF Managing Director has pointed out that the risks of a global recession are intensifying. She has warned against the ongoing damage that would be done by a prolonged recession around the world. We share the IMF Managing Director's concerns about the deteriorating global economy. The global economy has deteriorated significantly even over the course of the last few weeks, and that's been reflected in the increasingly concerned and concerning commentary from the IMF Managing Director overnight. The world economy is a dangerous place right now. The storm clouds are gathering in the global economy, and no responsible government could ignore that as they finalise a budget. This morning as well, the Reserve Bank has put out their financial stability report, and in doing so, they have made what I think is an obvious point, and that is that the higher interest rates go, the more they will sting ordinary Australians. Some Australians have a buffer in their personal finances, but many don't. And so 6 consecutive interest rate rises in 6 months, which began before the election and continued after the election in expected but still difficult ways, will and is having an impact on the finances of ordinary Australians. And that's the point that the Reserve Bank was making today. So the backdrop for the budget that I hand down in less than 3 weeks' time will be high inflation and rising interest rates, a deteriorating global economy and persistent structural pressures on the budget which will not be compensated for by higher commodity prices. And in this environment of high and rising inflation, difficult global economic conditions and persistent spending pressures, we will put a premium on what is responsible and affordable and sustainable and best targeted to this complex combination of economic conditions that we confront. No responsible government can ignore the inflation in our economy, the situation in the global economy, or the persistent structural pressures which are in our budget. And so as we finalise this budget, working closely with Katie Gallagher and the Expenditure Review Committee and the government more broadly, we will put a premium on what's responsible and affordable and sustainable and what makes the most sense when it comes to dealing with this complex combination of economic conditions that we confront.
Before the election, Treasurer, you argued against the opposition trying to assert that real wage increases would be inflationary. Now you're saying that if the tax cuts are of a magnitude our economy can't afford, that will be inflationary. How do you sort of walk that line?
Well, the two parts of that question are not inconsistent. I mean, first of all, we've got an inflation problem not because we've got a breakout of wages growth. On the contrary, for the best part of a decade and partly as a consequence of a deliberate government policy of wage suppression and wage stagnation, wages haven't been keeping up with the cost of living. And we've been upfront with people, we've levelled with people and said that situation will take some time to turn around, particularly when inflation is going through the roof as it is currently. When it comes to the tax cuts, I think we've made the obvious point that when it comes to cost of living relief, it should be targeted at people on low and middle incomes. We don't have an endless amount of money in a budget which is heaving with $1 trillion in Liberal Party debt. And so when it comes to providing cost of living relief, like I will in the October budget when it comes to childcare and medicines and the cost of education, we need to make sure that cost of living relief has an economic dividend as well. And that's what we're focused on.
So are you talking here, are you signalling here that, these economic pressures feeding into a budget will include decisions around tinkering with stage 3 tax cuts?
I'm making a broader point, and I think it's an uncontroversial point that you'd expect to hear from a Treasurer putting the finishing touches on a budget. And that is that we will put a premium on what's responsible, what's affordable, what's sustainable and what's targeted and relevant to the economic conditions that we confront. I think Australians expect that from us. I think Australians expect that from me. In less than 3 weeks, the budget will be all about responsible economic management. We do have $1 trillion in debt that we inherited. We do have difficult global conditions, and and rising inflation, and we do have persistent structural pressures on the budget, and no responsible government could ignore those.
So has the government's position on stage 3 tax cuts changed?
Our position hasn't changed, as we've said throughout the week. I'm making a broader point that all of the spending in the budget needs to be defensible on economic grounds, particularly when you consider the really quite extreme pressure on our economy and on our budget because of that combination of inflation and global conditions and persistent structural pressures on the budget. Right. We'll go here and then Adam, and then I've got to go.
This week, Treasury, it's kind of, you're saying you might scale back stage 3 tax cuts, but not actually saying anything at all. So can you categorically say we scale back or change those stage 3 tax cuts?
I've been clear throughout the course of the week. We haven't changed our position on those tax cuts. And what I've tried to do is to level with the Australian people about the complex combination of challenges that we confront as we put the finishing touches on the budget. And no responsible government can ignore the fact that the risks to the global economy are rising rather than decreasing. The pressures on the budget in a persistent structural way are growing rather than dissipating. And the pressure on household budgets from this inflation challenge and rising interest rates is putting more, not less, pressure on family budgets as well. And so I've tried to be upfront with people and level with people about that combination of challenges and pressures. They are the 3 defining features of the economy and the budget that we confront as we put the finishing touches on the budget. I think making those points should be entirely uncontroversial.
So
Last one, Adam.
So in managing those expectations in terms of what the public might be expecting in 2024, is there a matter of convincing people that those tax cuts are introduced at the level they're expecting, they're going to cost them in other ways, like overseas travel, for example, which was damage on the dollar? Is that sort of conversation you need to have with the taxpayers in terms of how they're going to suffer in other areas?
I think Australians are really smart and they understand that the global economy is a dangerous place. They know that the storm clouds are gathering in the global economy. They know that their costs of living are rising and their real wages are falling, and they know that their interest rates are going up. And they know that the growing costs of providing services that we support, aged care, health care, the NDIS and defending the nation, as well as the cost of servicing the $1 trillion of debt that we've inherited, all of those costs are going up as well. And so I think Australians are up for a pretty frank and upfront combination about what we confront together. And what I'm determined to do, not just in the context of this budget, but for as long as I'm doing this job, is to be upfront with people and level with people and bring them into my confidence about the issues that we are confronting and how we navigate those issues together. That's what I've been doing all of this week. That's what I've been doing since I've been the Treasurer, and that's what I'll continue to do. Thanks very much.